All right, welcome to the Rotated Views podcast. This is episode number 20, Playing Injured. Woo! I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I am here with Goose, Heck, Manny, and Gabe. That's right, we have the entire crew here with us today. In this episode, we discuss our stories of sucking it up and being relentless, the dad's reaction to a child's injury, and advice to friends on the difficulties of life. We wrap up the episode with quotes from Troy Polamalu and Peyton Manning. If you're new to the podcast, thank you. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We release a new episode every Tuesday morning. For further information about me and the crew, go to jimmyleevelez.com. All right, with that being said, we like to kick off every episode with a story, and I got this story from medicaldaily.com titled Smiling Through Hard Times Combats Health Effects of Stress by Licia Bushak. All right, and it goes like this. We all experience stress at some point, and many of us are probably stressed out at this very moment. Here's the good thing. New research suggests that our response to stress, whether calmness, anger, or positivity, can have just as much of an impact on our health as the stress itself. This seems to put more control in our own hands, giving us the reins to handle our stress the best way possible. Increased inflammation, a weakened immune system, altered DNA in our cells, and shortened telomeres. These are all adverse effects of chronic stress on a biological level. We can really learn to avoid these effects if we put us on a smile through all of the stressful events. That's what a new study out of Penn State University finds. Published in the Health Psychology, the study discovered that adults who maintained cheerfulness during minor stresses of daily life had lower inflammation levels. Women in particular were at a higher risk of inflammation if they failed to stay positive during stress. So while it may seem cheesy at first, smiling through your daily problems may improve your health and keep you resilient. All right, so that is from medicaldaily.com. That is an interesting topic, and also I love the fact that it was backed up by actual research by Penn State. So keeping, I guess, a positive attitude through a stressful situation has more benefits to your health than I thought ever possible. To me, I just initially thought it's just like a mindset. It changed your mindset and you're just kind of looking at things. But it actually has a physiological effect on our body, while we're thinking in a different way. Now I'm sure this is catered towards a very standard or the average reaction or stressful event, not anything specific to fatalities or anything dramatic or traumatic in that event. But when it comes to finances and a financial crisis or maybe like a relationship breakup or something like that, I think what this is trying to say is keeping a more positive outlook that this too shall pass kind of thing helps the body physiologically. What do you guys think about that? That physically it helps, not just like I always took it as a mindset thing.
But I guess that goes along with like a fake it till you make it type thing,
right?
It's that kind of attitude where it's like, things suck right now, but you put on a great face and just kind of keep it going, and you get to a point where I guess you do kind of believe that, or you kind of just at least the current emotion passes, even though like this current situation is still in a bad position, whatever it may be, but. And kind of just get through it at that moment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. When my senior year at Temple University, I know I always talk about this, but at that moment, I was under a lot of stress. And then I was introduced, ironically, to the personal development industry, and I was taught how we spoke about last episode or the episode before about being optimistic. And Manny was, we're poking fun that I was over the top with it. But I got through a very difficult situation that was stressful. It was school. I had to perform. There had to been certain grades that I had to reach, taking on a lot of credits. That being optimistic or being happy and having a positive outlook kind of like this too shall pass, I feel like got me through. That's why I get emotional. That's why I get worked up. That's why I'm so passionate about personal development, because that is actually what got me through Temple. It wasn't, the weekends, what everyone else was doing on the weekends. It wasn't, or any other form of outlet. It was literally just reading positive books and trying to stay positive, even though I was under a boatload of stress. And it's all, I guess, situational. Yeah. The way I internalized a situation, Manny might not have been as stressed about, or heck, you might not have been as stressed as I would have been. You might have been more relaxed. But for me, I was over the top with it. I didn't want to stay at school another year. I just wanted to finish when I wanted to finish. That was the end of that. So I put a lot of pressure on myself. But this, giving a positive outlook, and Lord knows, I don't know, maybe it did help me physically. I didn't know that, but it probably did, I'm sure. I know for me, when I think of physical, I think of like working out and stuff. Yeah. That's relieved stress for me. But hey, I guess, thinking, in a certain way or whatever also helps physically. Were you like that too, man? Like when we were going through school? I know you had a couple things going on as well.
I mean, through school, I hated school, so I was always depressed. And there was no, I wouldn't call it depressed. There was no energy for it, but I never changed the mindset to try to make it more fun, and I didn't see the kind of the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So I stayed miserable, and it didn't force me to study. I mean, I'm sure your positive thinking kind of helped you through. It does change your mindset, and it actually gives you energy. I do believe that, because when I was supposed to study, I was like, oh, man, I'm tired. I'm taking a nap. Yeah. I'll go take a nap. It was like, damn well I woke up 2 hours ago. I think that's absolutely true. It does work if you fake it till you make it, whatever you want to call it. It definitely gives you a burst of energy, or at least puts you in a different mindset and makes you your whole body feel good and move towards a positive direction.
So is that how you were just towards school, or did you ever apply being happy during, not happy, but I guess more optimistic during a more stressful event, or were you trying to look on the brighter side?
I make it a point, because I've kind of have made myself aware that when I'm down, it's down. I ride the highs and lows. Yeah. And at work, you can't really ride the highs and lows like that. When you have a win, and you can't be the biggest win in the world. And when you have a loss, it can't be the biggest loss either. So now I try to just keep as calm as I can be, because when I'm low, I don't want to do anything. I find the stupidest things to do. I'll surf the web or whatever the case is. So now it's more of a conscious thing. Like, come on, this is going to help you here. Big picture, 5 years down the road, a year down the road, this is going to net you this sale, this customer, this. So that helps you kind of push forward and helps me kind of move along.
Yeah, and that, I love the point you just hit, because to me is when you have a plan or strategy, you feel more comfortable, or you can be a little bit more optimistic. Even if, like you're saying, that's not what you naturally do. But if you have a plan, or there's something in action, strategy, I feel like that will relieve so much. For example, when I first started studying the stock markets and stuff like that, one of the first things they say is that you need a gut for this. If you don't have a gut for this, you can't do stuff. Do not enter into this, because there's highs and lows, right? Yeah. The volatility is insane. So, listen to one of the guys that I follow on Stock Twits. He said when he first started out, he was making, when he started to get it, understand it. So this is like within his first 18 months, he was making like $1,000 a week, right? Mm-hmm. So then he would do that consistent. So then, okay, by the end of the month, he was making $4,000, and then in one day, he lost $4,000.
Right.
Off that. So it took him a month to get to where he was, and then all of a sudden, so he said that is a gut check. That's what they say. You need a gut for this.
Right.
Because he had a plan in place, though. He figured, I'm going to bounce back for that. The plan that I have, there's like, the law of averages or whatever. His strategy was eventually it will come back.
Sure.
So he had to cut his losses and just take it at that, instead of trying to, what they call like double down and all this other stuff and average down. He just went with it. He's like, that's it. That's my loss. I got to learn from it. So he said he went back, looked at all his trades, and studied what he did wrong, and came back and realized there was a pattern in what he was doing and what he was good at. So there's some stuff he wasn't so good at, and there's some stuff he was really good at reading. So he went with his strengths.
Right.
From there, now you're talking about a guy who just, in one day cleared 10 grand. So having that strategy, he said that it still made him confident for some reason. He's like, I just lost my life savings, but for some reason I was confident.
Right.
And I feel like it was because he had that plan, that strategy.
So it's kind of like keeping a focus on like the bigger picture as opposed to like getting stuck in like the smaller negative parts of it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to us. We always talk about knowing your why. If you know why you're doing it, let's not get this messed up. Everyone has an awful day, awful week, awful month, awful year. That doesn't, no matter who you are, whether you're rich, poor, skinny, fat, tall, or small, it doesn't matter. You're going to experience traumatic stuff. You're going to experience a lot of stress. You're going to experience issues. But then we all have to understand that you're going to also experience the victories. You're also going to experience the happiness. You're also going to experience, the great things life has to offer. And going back to what Manny says is you have to find that balance. Mm-hmm. If you're up in the highs and lows, I'm one to say, we all know this. I always say, feel the emotions of life, but don't let it sink you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Also, don't let it take you off in a balloon either, because you're going to fall harder than anything. So if you celebrate those things and kind of experience or feel the pain for a temporary amount of time, I think you're all right. I think that's the best approach, because it keeps you in tune with reality. But
talking about it, I was just thinking about it, not talking about the story. It's true even when you go to a funeral. You ever realize people don't dwell on the sad things, right? People always dwell on the happy parts of it.
Yeah.
Why? Because that helps you get through it, right?
Yeah.
So, it is true, and it just kind of like dawned on me, man, that's why people talk about, when you give these eulogies or give these stories, there's always something positive, something that makes you laugh, because that helps heal the wounds and helps you get through those times. You don't even realize it. Like, you're smiling through it. And you feel like it's forced, but it's actually, it's really helping you through the process, or at least get the process started of the healing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point. Yeah, you would figure you wouldn't be laughing at a funeral, but somehow someone makes it a point and says like a funny story.
Absolutely.
And those are the things that, those are the things we should be, cherishing and, giving that perspective on, someone's passing. So, okay, so if you are, once again, new to the podcast, I like to define a couple things using dictionary.com to kind of help us facilitate with the podcast and the episode. So I define the word injured, which means to do or cause harm of any kind, damage, hurt, impair. A general term referring to any kind of degree of damage. And I defined adamant, utterly unyielding in attitude or opinion in spite of all appeals, urgings, etc. So, with those two things defined, our story out of the way, and on the back of our minds, let's move on to segment 2, which I want to ask you guys, have you ever played injured, and explain? Also, this doesn't necessarily mean physical. So, once again, when I mean playing injured, I mean there's stuff going on in your life, right? It could be, relationship issues. You and your spouse, you and your significant other are arguing, like wild. But you still have to perform at work. Like, you still have to be a professional. You still have to wipe the slate clean and, basically bring the cake home still. This can be physically. Maybe you played with, like a fractured hand or something like that, or something else. Once again, we're not, applauding these things, but we're giving us our examples, nor are we encouraging these things. But I believe everyone at one point played injured. It's just a matter of, to what extent, to what degree, and where they're doing it and why.
My playing injured was a physical thing. It was when I was 19 or 20 years old. I worked in a warehouse, driving a forklift, and then at the same time, when I would leave there, I would work at the barbershop part-time, trying to earn my hours to get my barber license. Well, at the barbershop, everyone goofs around, hangs out. So I'm out back of the shop, and there was a bunch of kids riding skateboards. So me, when I was younger, I used to ride skateboards, swore I can hop on this thing and like show these kids off or whatever. So I got on the skateboard, jump off a roof of a car and hyperextended my knee.
Oh gosh.
So I just thought I sprained my knee or whatever. I go to work at the factory that I was working at. I'm walking around. My knee's still bothering me, whatever. And I tell one of my coworkers that my knees hurting. So they said go see a doctor. I go see a doctor. Needless to say, I tore my ACL, my meniscus, whatever. So I had to get reconstructive surgery on my knee. So when I get that done, I had to take a short-term disability from the factory for 6 months. So I get the surgery done, and not even 3 weeks later, I just can't sit around at home.
Yeah.
So I was getting rides to go to the barbershop so I can work there all day.
Yeah.
So I was working with this big brace on my leg with stitches still and not even, and then leaving there, going to physical therapy, coming back, and I was catching the vibe of the whole barbershop for how I'm experiencing what it would be working there 8 hours, 9 hours, as opposed to 2 or 3 from before. 6 months go by, I go back to the warehouse, and I'm I don't want to be here. Driving a forklift, and I don't want to be here. So that changed my mind on my career. So I experienced what it would be like to work at a barbershop full time, all day. Mm-hmm. And then I would go to this other place that I didn't like. It wasn't my career. It wasn't nothing. It was just something for me to do to generate income. So then I talked to my family and made decisions on working at the barbershop full time.
Yeah.
So I gave my 2 weeks notice. And then I started working at the barbershop full time. But if it wasn't for that injury, I wouldn't have pursued my career to work at the barbershop full time. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I just thought I was going to do it as a part-time gig forever, something on the side. But due to the injury, it gave me the opportunity to work there for a couple months full time, and I got to enjoy and got to experience what I was really missing out if I didn't do that. If I didn't go and work at the shop all day, as opposed to go back to the warehouse.
Now that's interesting because not only did you play injured on a teenage however old you were, mistake or knucklehead move, riding a skateboard, doing something foolish, but you played with a bummed leg, cutting hair, and loving in fact, you wanted to make it full time, and now. Let's bring this all back to basics, guys. You have to stand up to be a barber. You don't sit down cutting people's hairs, right? So you're using, obviously, what's injured, and you actually played through it. Not only that, you literally discovered what your passion in life and which eventually been your calling in life was.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
When you're absolutely healthy, you are kind of half in. But then when you're physically injured and dedicated your time for that, and you got the taste of what it was to be a full-time barber, you're all in.
Yeah.
With a bum leg. Awesome. Yep. That's absolutely awesome.
Well, that's the definition. That's why you play injured, right? That's when the greatest things tend to come up. That's when the greatest things tend to happen. When that difficulty or that obstacle comes through and you overcome that, that's usually when you're granted the greatest gifts. Right.
So if he didn't go to work injured, he would have never known that was his actual passion.
Still be rolling forklifts around, huh?
Yep.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, play injured.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's be smart about it. Yeah. But you have to play injured.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have a played injured story?
I kind of have something. It's more generalized, I guess you could say. Because I guess kind of intertwines with the first segment too, with the Because I talked about a few episodes back, some of the stresses and anxieties and all that stuff that I've dealt with for a long time. But even when I let the stuff overwhelm me, I think I was talking to you. It was I literally I keep that part private, essentially.
Yeah, right.
So it's nobody really sees that version of myself. But one of my friends I've known for maybe several years at this point. We always have random life conversations. Me and you have random life conversations and stuff. And I actually started talking about this stuff, which I have more recently anyway. And she said, over the past 5 6 years, she says she would have never even known I go through that stuff because I guess like reaction, like in the moment reaction, you can see all over my face, but like the deep seated stuff, I never show that part of me out in public. So it's like it's weird, like that type of thing. Where it's like I could be currently going through like something crazy, but it's like I know how to put on like the brave face and stuff, and just like, especially when you're around people, it kind of makes it a little easier. Like kind of earlier, like you get a little more positive and stuff like that too. So it kind of helps with some of that stuff, but. But that type of stuff, like I always kept it private. But like, even when I talk about it now, it's almost like, I guess to some people it doesn't make sense because I'm like, I'm never really, like I said, I would never show that part of me. So.
Absolutely, that kind of goes along with us, the rest of us here being fathers, going through adult stuff, whether it's finances or whatever. We're not sitting there breaking it down to our kid. Our kid has no idea, and it's like, dude, I don't even know if I'm going to make this month's rent. I don't even know if I can hit up this car note for this month. And then they come running to you in your arms and you're like, Daddy, want to play with the ball? I'm like, yeah, bud, let's play with the ball. Boom. And it's, like you say, it's like that poker face. You'll never show or never expose that side. To let them feel those emotions is absolutely unnecessary for them at that point of their life when they're that young. There's no need for it because that's something you have to figure out anyway. And I think we all do that, right? I mean, that's a normal parent thing, I think. So going with the playing injured, I have a couple, but I'll just use the one that I'm currently going through right now. I broke my foot jogging. I rolled my ankle on a curb and I heard the snap. I just dropped to the floor and I hobbled my way home. I thought I sprained my ankle. Then when I got closer to my home, about a quarter mile away, slowly started realizing this is probably more than a sprain. I elevated it, felt the pain, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Needless to say, went to the hospital with my brother Goose, and they're like, oh, yeah, you broke it. So I had so many plans going on within the next 2 weeks to a month and a half that I need to do physically. I physically have to do stuff. And this is outside of exercising and all this other stuff. Like a vacation was planned. I have to go for like orientation down Center City for my master's program. So you have all this stuff, and that's just, I'm only naming a few. There's a bunch of other things. And I have a desk job per se, but I need to be mobile at work. I'm, up talking to physicians, talking to patients, talking to staff, coordinating things, going to meetings, carrying stuff like, medical records throughout the hospital, and they're not light. So I quickly realized, like, holy smokes, there's so much stuff this is messing me up with. And I didn't even realize. I'm like, it's a sprained ankle. I'll get over it. Or it's a broken foot. We'll deal with it. Well, I'm in crutches, so my two hands are occupied. So my first day, what'd I do? Whine to myself. I can't even get a water. I can't even drink anything. How do I get food? How do I eat lunch? Like, I can't bring it up. I can't bring a tray up.
Right.
And I can't stand asking somebody for help. Not that I can't stand asking for help. I ask for help when it's like, I obviously need the help. It's just, I feel like people have so much problems themselves they need it too. Yeah. That's what bothers me in general. Not that I don't like asking for help. So then all of a sudden I found myself complaining about everything, right? Oh man, I can't even take a shower today. I have to take baths. Who takes baths? I'm a grown man. I don't want to take a bath because this thing obviously can't get wet. Messed up my exercise thing. Like, oh my goodness, man, I was on a roll. I was exercising 2 times a day, doing everything, right? Just found myself just straight up complaining. Then all of a sudden I checked myself. Then I started cracking up. I'm like, dude, what are you complaining about? Like, what in the world? So ironically, the moment I stopped complaining, right, the next morning, I figured, I'm like, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a backpack. You guys know, like, there's drawstring backpacks?
Yeah.
Whatever. So I'll say, from my car to the hospital, I'll put, water bottles in there, and I'll pack a lunch that, whatever. So then I'll put it around my, back, because I couldn't carry anything heavy. So my briefcase is way too heavy. So I had this little drawstring thing. I figured that out. So now I'm actually hydrated at work. I have food. I coordinated with a couple other people. One person said they'll, if I wanted a breakfast or a coffee, they'll bring it up because they go around the same time I do. Same thing for lunch. A different person, different scenario, but they do the same thing. That was all figured out. When it came to carrying other stuff, I figured out all these things that I was complaining about. And then when I figured it out and stopped complaining, all the possibilities, all the resolutions started to come to me, right?
Right.
And then I said, this isn't so bad. Not that it's the ideal situation. Believe me, I don't want to be in crutches, but it could be worse. When you look at things like that and you present questions to yourself saying, it could be worse.
Yeah.
So then here I am, watching the Olympics, right? And then in between, they have commercials of I think it's the Paralympics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So then there's this like athletic build woman running, like sprinting, literally with one leg, and then the other leg is like with the
That carbon fiber leg.
the
thing.
carbon fiber leg thing. And she does like a long jump.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
like
yeah.
running, and I'm like, dude, you see what I mean? It was like it was that same night the same day I changed my thinking, where all of a sudden I was like trying to be positive about everything. It was when I started seeing all the possibilities and all the things that I should be grateful for. Like, this could be a worse situation. This could be, that was just me being, a punk about it.
Right.
Like, that's all I was being. I was just feeling bad for myself. But once I got over, it was just a mental block. Once I got over that, now, yes, I am playing injured. Yes, it's not fun. Yes, I'm hobbling around the hospital. Yes, but I'm still getting my work done. I'm still efficient in what I do. I just have to strategize and do it a different way. Literally, that's all it is. I'm still eating my lunch. I'm still hydrated. I'm still, doing the things that I need to do. And when it comes to exercising, believe me, if anyone has been in crutches, my back should be shredded by the time 2 weeks comes, because I am so sore. I'm holding up. You have to hold up your own body weight, basically, pushing yourself. Yeah, that was just my small snippet. It was nothing. It's not nothing dramatic. Playing injured. I know there's plenty of other stuff that I've done playing quote unquote injured, and but I just wanted to give that example because it was the most recent, or what I'm currently going. Currently, my leg is raised up underneath the desk. My foot's still broken as we speak, and So, and I'm still doing this podcast with no complaint. Actually, I looked forward to it because it was the one thing that I can actually express this through, right?
Right.
Kind of the emotions that you're going through, and this is a guy 6'3", 200 pounds, talking about those things. So it doesn't matter if you're a little kid or you're probably like, oh, I can't go swimming for the summer. We all do it, dude. I'm 31 years old.
Right.
I busted my ankle exercising, so it happens to the best of us.
Right.
But I think it's just that. I think it's that mental block. Playing injured is a mentality. Some people would just give up and quit. And I know my example is very shallow compared to a lot of things, but it's a great example. If now that's just my leg. Imagine if it was something else. Imagine if I was like in a full body cast. What kind of mental blocks you have to go through to operate on a daily basis.
Well, I mean, it actually builds character, and this is one injured story that you could talk about, and this probably helped you. Then, our freshman year going into college, had a little motorcycle accident. I think you had screws, pins all in your left arm, and you were in the middle of your freshman year.
Yeah.
And it was a full arm, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
You had to get up ass early. I'm talking like 5 o'clock in the morning in college is like getting up at 3 in the morning to wash your arm off, or really take a bucket and wipe yourself down to get a shower. Sponge baths in college by yourself as a freshman. I remember thinking like, man, that sucks. So I mean, you should have drew some strength from those days.
Oh, I did. And my sophomore year, so all right, so going back to the freshman year thing, yeah, I had to, and the reason why was, so we had what's that called when it's like open, not open, the showers weren't open, like there was dividers in between each one, but it was like public showers for the the dorm, the kids who were in the dorms. Yeah, they're like stalls.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the bottoms and the tops are open. So my first experience was I just got in. I was like, I got to take a shower or whatever. And the person next to me was probably like, I don't know, 6'5", and their head was getting splashed with the water, and all their water was just bouncing onto me. Yeah. So my stuff was getting wet. I'm like, dude, what's going on? And here I am, like trying to grab all my stuff with one arm. Oh, it was a disaster. So to avoid that, I then would get up early in the morning before anyone else was taking showers, just to give myself basically like a sponge bath, because the shower was too much. The pressure of the shower would just splash everywhere. It was just It was a disaster. But then actually, sophomore year, I chipped a bone in my ankle playing tennis. So I was in a wheelchair for...
Oh, man, I remember that.
Yeah, I was in a wheelchair for about 2 weeks.
Really?
In a wheelchair, yeah.
Dude, you're fragile, bro. And I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Well, me and Goose were talking about this, cracking up laughing. I definitely was playing tennis in Air Force Ones.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, they have
they're
a heel.
Yeah, they're bricks, dude. They're like, they give you like a 2-inch lift.
Low top Air Force
yourself
Ones.
up for
They're
success
heavy.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for tennis.
Gray canvas Air Force Ones.
Oh, my goodness.
They were hot then, though.
Yeah.
Yo,
But-
and tell them why you wore the gray.
I literally wore the gray because it matched. Like, I had my outfit was
My man went
matching.
to play tennis.
Matching.
And I was playing with my buddy. It wasn't even like I was playing like...
Yeah, he went to look
He had
pretty.
to look the part,
Yeah.
though. He had to look the part.
Yeah.
He had gray
Play
pants
better.
on, the gray shirt.
I had a gray shirt, orange lettering, orange like Nike shorts, and the gray sneaks.
Just dropping dimes, dude. You're out
Yeah.
there just serving them
Yeah.
up.
Looking mad cute.
Yeah. Terrible.
Playing on stilts.
Yeah,
That
so
cost you
cute.
2 weeks of your
Well,
life. in
hang
a
on.
wheelchair.
Now I still had to go to all my classes, right? I still had to do all this stuff. I drew a crazy, till this day, at the end of curbs, like when you're crossing the street, it dips down for for strollers, for wheelchairs. On campus, they're awful. So I grew an appreciation looking at, like, if there's a lip, someone in a wheelchair can't go up that. Like, you have to literally do a wheelie, and not everyone's young. Obviously, I did it because I was, 19, 20 years, not even. I was like 17, 18 years old. So, of course, I can, like, do a bunny hop over it. But I'm thinking, like, if someone's not as strong as that, if there's a lip, look at them now. Like, when you see the curves, when you see one that was flush, I literally driving and, like, kind of, like, applauding in my mind. Like, good job. Whoever did that, that's excellent. That's actually useful. The other stuff's not useful. Why do you have a curb or like a dip down on? I don't even know. That's called something. It's driving me crazy. Anyway, it's like a dips down. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know. The curb. I don't know what it is.
I don't know what
It's
it's called.
like an
Like an
L.
entryway into the sidewalk or whatever.
Dipping.
Yeah. Well, if there's like more than an inch and a half, lip, it's pointless.
Yeah.
Because then you're just gonna, flip over it.
Great.
Jimmylee, you got a lot of resolution, like,
Reservoirs?
Reservoirs. Yeah.
So I tapped into that.
Yeah.
I said, dude, I'm like, dude, you were in a wheelchair for 2 weeks on main campus.
Yeah.
Half the time having to get pushed. I was like coordinating schedules with people. Oh, it was a disaster.
Huh?
But you get through it. It was just a mental block. And this was prior to personal development.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine what I was thinking.
So I don't know if it's playing injured or what, but it's basically I'm out of a car right now. So when my Jeep went down, I was overly dramatic, and I'm like, damn, dude, I don't have a car. I'm thinking the worst case scenario, I'm gonna have to take off for a week. I have to take off so I can find a car and this and that. And in my head, I'm like, damn, what do I tell my wife? Like, what's wrong with my car? And so I was just building myself up and hyping myself up for no reason. I'm a grown man, should not even be worrying about any of this stuff. But again, I guess that was the best getting to me about the whole car situation. So then we're sitting there, and I took a picture of my damaged vehicle, and I sent it to my brothers, and of course my genius brother Jim, he texts me back. He's like, "Yo, talk to Manny, see if he's got that truck still." Well, I know he's got the truck. See if he'll let you borrow it. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to bother anybody. Me being stubborn, I don't like to bother anyone. So I text Manny and I was like, first I spoke to my wife and I asked her, I was like, so what do you think? What's the situation? What are we going to do? And this and that. And she's like, I have no idea. I was like, well, I have an idea. He just told me to talk to Manny, see if I can borrow his truck. And
you were instantly negative though. He said, "Yeah, but I don't think it's inspected." I was like, "No,
yes,
heck,
I did say that.
I just
back
had to
then.
use it to pick up something large, and it just got inspected the same day." So
the
it's
last
inspected.
time I heard about the truck, Manny said it didn't have inspection or something was wrong with it. I don't know. That was obviously a year ago that when we spoke about that truck. So anywho, I ended up using the truck. Thankful to Manny, appreciate it. It was awesome. The truck. First of all, I got a lot of compliments on that truck. Everywhere I went, everyone was asking me about it.
Good truck.
And yes, it's very beautiful. So So basically my whole thing was I just made a big stink out of something where instead of putting my thought process into it to, overcome it, I just acted like a big baby. And now the situation we have right now is my wife is where we should be getting a newer vehicle, but my wife is using her work van. So there she was, I guess, thinking outside the box and putting her, asking her her job to borrow the van until we can figure ourselves up. But I mean, like in the meantime, it's just like I don't know. I get stressed out and I overreact with things.
Yeah. Well, and it ended up all working out.
And it will. At the end, yeah.
You're still working it out, but it
right. I'm still working it out, and at the end, it will work out. I mean, hopefully sooner or later. Hopefully more sooner than later.
You're
but
still able to go to work throughout that whole week.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also got multiple offers from people wanting to help you or take you into work or whatever. I think like the biggest takeaway from hearing the playing injured stories, and I'm sure we all went through much more dramatic stuff. We're I think keeping it lighthearted here, but everyone at home listening or whatever, you're probably going through that right now. You're probably going through playing injured right now or got injured, whatever shape, form that is. I think what would draw from that is you'll get through it. You just keep on keeping on. And the other thing is what the initial story is saying, keeping a positive outlook, knowing your why. And it draws a huge appreciation for whatever's injured.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you appreciate your car way more, right? You appreciate your kneecap way more. I appreciated my foot way more than I ever thought. Yeah. And let's be honest, it was stuff that, I pray about that stuff, thank you God for my, my physical health. But it's still specific enough. There's like, am I still being thankful for that, or am I just saying that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm truly grateful for, my limbs.
Right.
And how funny that sounds, but when it's taken away from you, what was that saying? Like, when it's taken away from you, I don't know, but you miss it, that's for sure.
You take it for granted.
You take it for granted, right? And so your level of appreciation, your gratefulness, rises to levels, unseen. But all right, so moving on. Let's move on to the dad life segment. And this is for the guys, the parents here. How are you as a parent when your child gets hurt? Do you over-exaggerate or are you calm? Obviously, it depends on the extent of the injury. So this is an actual physical injury thing.
I used to be overly exaggerated. Like, there's a couple times where my kid would be on the chair. And this is just a very vague picture, but there was a time where she was sitting down, she was about to fall, and I saw the whole thing happening, but I jumped up and reacted so fast that nothing ever got to happen because I was there to save her. I'm like, well, they're not going to learn anything from this. Like, they need to understand that, she was jumping. She already got told once to stop jumping off the chair, and I saw her jumping, so I tried to help her before she got hurt. Like, I didn't want to see her get hurt. So I'm, like, fast moving to get over to help her out. But I don't know and now I just watch them. Oh, okay. Like, I just let them go. Like, they have to learn. Like, I'm telling them to chill out.
It's like tumbling. I just see you, like, watching TV and your kid's, like, flying down the steps, falling down
When
the
you
steps.
have 4 kids.
Get up, stand up, shake it off, shake it off.
In fact, get a shower. It's time for a shower.
Your bedtime.
Yeah, I mean, I was, oh man, awful. I'll give you a funny story. It wasn't funny at the time. It's funny now. My wife and I had our son, and I don't know when this was. This was like the first time. So, dude, we're talking like, bro, he's obviously an infant. We had to cut his nails. So I go, and she's super like nervous about this thing. And in my mind, I'm like, what are you nervous about? You're just cutting nails. She's like, they're smaller. They say, babies are fidgety or whatever. They feel uncomfortable because you're like pulling on a finger or whatever. It's not normal for them. Mm-hmm. I'm like, give me. I've cut my dog's nails however many
Good
times.
comparison.
That
Good
was my
comparison.
comparison. This is a first time
His
dad.
kid is his dog.
The dumb things that went through my head, right? So I grab his finger. I'm like, watch. Boom, boom, boom. I kid you not. On the first snip, I damn near took this kid's finger off. No, I took off like a decent chunk. I mean, it wasn't like bone or anything, but I took enough that he was just bleeding. And he, was like trying to catch that breath kind of cry. Like there's nothing coming out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Dude, what was that for? I started crying, dude. I threw the nail clippers on the floor. I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed in myself. I'm like, do I call 911? What is going on right now? We didn't know.
He went to ambulance.
Put a cast on it.
Call the ambulance.
I called the ambulance. Like, I didn't know what, dude. I was so mad at myself. And my wife was just so calm or whatever about it. I think she wanted to like yell at me or something, but she saw I was already beating myself up enough that she's like, all right, well, that's not going to help. And this baby's bleeding. So we got to figure this out. Because like his fingers like rolling around the floor. Nah, it wasn't that bad. It was literally like a nip, but it was enough for it ended up stopping bleeding. He was actually fine. But it wasn't the point. It was, dude, my reaction, it was like, whoa, it was like so over the top. But I don't know. I think if you're a caring parent who's involved in your child's life, I think that's a natural reaction. There's no way you see like, all right, your first child, is gushing blood and you're just sitting there calm as anything.
Yeah, no.
And you're there by yourself. Okay, no, that's not happening. But I mean, I said this to my buddy Chris. Chris and Tara just had a child, and their first child, and I told him, like they always tell us. The babies don't come with owner's manuals, so you have to figure it out. Like it's just funny. Like he put on a bow backwards or something like that, and Tara, who's got a C-section, is laughing so hard, but she's mad at the same time because of her stitches. And she's not supposed to be laughing like that. So she's like hugging that pillow thing they give you, and it's like, dude, this is only day 2.
Yeah.
Boy.
I told him, like, dude, if it was me, I had a son, so I was like, dude, if it was me, I probably would have did the same thing. If you saw this thing got you would have been dying. I don't even know if you would call this a bow. It's just like I don't even know what it is. It was just funny because I told him, I'm like, dude, I would probably would have did the same thing. You don't know, like you just don't know, but. Yeah, dude, it's hilarious. I don't know. I see the people who are overreactive on certain things, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You can't be too dramatic either way, because then that's, it's the classic example where your kid's running on cement and falls and scrapes both knees and his hands or whatever, and sometimes it's not that bad of a scrape. And they're only crying because you're like, oh my gosh, come here, are you okay? And then they start crying.
You're feeding off your reaction.
Right. And if you, other times, if you just let them go, and you're like, no, let them go. And you just get up and just go like that, clap their hands, whatever, boom, boom, boom. Heck thought a couple times I was being rough with James, but I had to, just let him go. I'm not going to run over. He fell, and he was fine. There was not blood. There was not even a scrape on it, but he tumbled. And he was young, I understand.
Yeah, you yelled at me. I went to go save him. He's like, no, let him go, dude. Let him go. I felt bad.
He rolled in grass. I mean, it was like as simple as
I am dramatic. You know why? I'll tell you why I'm dramatic about when someone gets hurt. Because I, as a kid, Puerto Rican parents, the Hispanic parents would hit you for when you got hurt. So here's a good example. Here's a good story. I would go to my aunt and uncle's house, and my aunt, I don't know if you remember the 90s, the good old gut buster. All right, so the gut buster was laying out in the living room, and I guess my aunt was using it earlier in the day or whatever. So, and it was a habit. We always went over there to see my grandma.
Wait, what was the gut buster? That thing with the spring?
No, it was Susanna Summers had it. It looked like a ab roller.
Oh, it was a rolly thing.
No, it was like this.
It was
a thigh master.
It was like it was like a rolly. It was like a.
Yeah, I know what that was.
Yeah,
the blue foam on it.
It looked like a
blue foam.
It looked like a turtle shell, right?
No. All right. So anywho, so it was so I was using it. So I'm bending down forward with it while my geniusness decides to use it the opposite way. So basically, the wide open part was down on my chest and on my legs. So I'm going up and down with it. My mom's sitting next to me. My uncle is cracking up laughing because, of course, I was making a fool of myself. So then I wasn't paying attention, and the spring loaded hit me in the chin, and I said, ah, and my mom smacks me in the back of my head, and she goes, that's what you get for not listening and not using things the proper way.
That's
so I hurt
crazy.
myself like bad. Like I hit my chin. Like I chin checked myself really bad that I bit my tongue, and my mom smacks me upside the head. So that thing right there. Yes, that's it right there. Is that what it's called?
That's the thigh master.
Thigh master. Thigh master.
Gutbuster. You weren't even.
No, but it was,
you
okay.
should have been hit, dude.
What?
So,
Oh
yo,
my gosh.
it was a thigh master, and I was using it as a gut muster. So, so there you go. That explains that. So yeah. So
No wonder
every time
she hit you.
every time I hurt myself and my mom was around, she would hit me, or not gonna say beat me because I don't think I've ever gotten beaten. They would just hit me like just Spanish, Hispanic parents
With
are
the
like
chancla.
that with the chancla,
Bopped upside the head. So
So-
now you're over dramatic.
So now I'm over dramatic. Yeah, that's a gut buster. That's the other thing where you sit on and
That's great.
yeah, Wayla had one of those. And yeah, so I'm a little overly dramatic when it comes to the kids. So I don't, because I would get hit every time I hurt myself.
Big gut buster.
What are you gonna say, man?
There's 3 different stories on how to react. So the first one was my son's probably 3 years old. We're at a party. I'm feeding him rice, and as he's eating it, he's like just starts like coughing, like gasping for air, and my reaction was nothing. I just looked at him. 3 women jumped over the table and picked him up and started pounding his chest, and I still had the plate of rice in my hand with the fork, looking at him, and my wife goes, "Man, really?" And I just looked at her and said, "This is all I got." And that's all that was said. So in that situation,
You
when
didn't
he
know
was,
what to do.
the choking,
You just
I've
froze.
always been like a phobia.
Nervous?
Almost.
Yeah.
Always. With the lollipop, anytime they got a lollipop, don't run. They got to sit and like eat their lollipop and cannot move.
Sit in the corner.
Yeah, the choking thing. But then comes, a year later, he's maybe 4 or 5. We're playing catch with a softball. Well, I get overzealous and I throw one right at him. I throw it, decent speed for a
Little
4-year-old.
zip to it.
Yeah, boom, hit him right in the nose. Dude,
my
and
God.
it like blew up and blood was everywhere. I didn't even flinch. I think I should have caught the ball. So in that situation, when he got hurt, I was like, I should
See,
have
that's
caught
the
the ball.
Hispanic side.
I don't know if that's
Yeah.
what it was. Dude, there was
Toma.
chunks of blood coming out of his nose, and I didn't
Safe.
feel any remorse. Fast forward maybe 2 years later, he's 6 years old, 7 years old. We're watching. We're supposed to be watching a boxing match, Mayweather-Pacquiao. Well, he comes running into the house. Here he falls off a trampoline, breaks his arm. I'm mad at him. I'm mad at him because he, in my opinion, he was a moron.
Yeah.
Like I was just completely mad at
Dude,
him.
you're rough.
So I can't tell you how to react. Like it's all circumstantial. Like 'cause
Yeah,
sometimes, and there's other times where I do feel bad. Yesterday he got stung in the eye at Sesame Place. He was standing there getting ice cream, and a bee got him right in the eye. He woke up this morning looking like Quasimodo's brother.
Yeah.
And I felt bad. Like I felt bad for him. Genuinely felt bad for him. But again, it all depends. So like I don't know. Sometimes I just don't know how to feel with him. I don't know. It's not always bad. I don't ever exaggerate. It's just I just go with the flow, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, it's weird because you naturally have the protective side, but also you want to instill lessons at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where you gotta try to find like in between or whatever. Like what they say, don't touch the stove; it's hot. You
Right.
touch it, you're gonna get burned.
Right.
Yeah.
Or whatever, the fire. You know what I mean? Sometimes you gotta let them kind of, figure it
figure
out
it
for
out.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you guys say to someone who's potentially has to play injured, but all they're doing is complaining? They have the potential. Let me rephrase that. What do you say to someone who can be playing injured, but is choosing to complain about the situation instead and kind of feel bad for themselves or mope around about it? What's your approach? Just you wring them by the neck or
I guess everybody's different because everybody's thought process is a little different. But my brother, I don't know if he's playing injured, but he's going to nursing school full time, but is also working full time. So anybody going through school, obviously it's super difficult. But he's been like miserable for the last, I would say, year. So for me, it's just putting it back into perspective. Like you're almost done. You chose to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like, I know, but I still want to complain during it. I was like, I'm good with that, and I'm okay with it. But you kind of got to nut up a little bit and just finish it out. You're almost there. The light's at the end of the tunnel. don't give in. So put it back into perspective for him and just say, dude, it's temporary. Just think about all the good stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. Once you get to the career, to the end and you're in your career full blown, you're going to forget about this. So this is temporary. It's going to end. I try to, shade it in a positive light rather than, be, come on, let's go, do this, do that. Because not everybody wants to hear that all the time.
No, that's what I was thinking. Like you'd be supportive, whatever. I mean, because if it's like a tough time, whatever, blah blah. I mean, it's the only thing you do is be supportive. I mean, some people do complain for complaint's sake. It seems like,
right.
But I mean, if they're also gonna do what they're gonna do anyway. If they're gonna get past it, like if it's something they have to financial or whatever it is.
Right.
If it's something they can actually get out of, they're gonna they're eventually get to the point where it's like a breaking point where you're gonna have to get beyond that point anyway. And if you're like, tell them to suck it up. I mean, that's not necessarily like a good thing,
right.
But that doesn't help the situation at the same time. Yeah. So, I mean, just be supportive. I mean, because they'll eventually get past it anyway.
If he wanted to quit, then I'd yell at him.
Yeah.
But he's just complaining about it. You know what I mean? He's just kind of just laboring through it. But if you wanted to quit, then obviously that's a whole different conversation.
Exactly.
Some people just feel the need to complain. I don't know. I always say is that somebody else might have it worse than you. So to really complain, I mean, you have a job.
Listen, there's never might. It's always. There's always.
Yeah, there is. That's true. That's true. I mean, you have a job, you have a family, you have people with you. There are people out there that don't have any of that. You know what I mean? You're sitting there complaining. You're at work like, oh, I hate my job, and you're complaining about it or whatever. But it is what it is. It's like Spanish people say, "Hey, cómo estás aquí? Pues, tú sabes, todo chaval." Like all messed up and banged up. And you're just asking them how you're doing, Like you're trying to be happy and going on with them. And they're just right off the bat complaining, saying they're all beat up and ain't worth nothing and don't have no money. I didn't ask you all that. I said, how are you?
No, they always end it with, it's not your fault, though, boss.
It's not your fault.
I could complain, but you don't want to listen.
Some people just like to feel sorry for themselves.
Yeah. I think that's what I was kind of going towards, like someone who's constantly just like moping and just kind of whatever. But piggybacking on what Manny said, not every time someone is complaining, or if it's new person complaining, obviously it's not something they do regularly, they just might need an ear. All they want you to do is listen.
Right.
Or even if you're not listening, just the fact that you're there with your shoulder just lean on. Sometimes your unsolicited, opinion needs to stay in the trash can, where it belongs, because sometimes that just either makes a, situation worse, or it's just not empathetic at all. You have no compassion towards someone who's actually might be going through something, and maybe they know what you're already about to say to them. That advice, I know that, but I just want to complain, or I just want to get it off my chest. I just want to say it.
Just
I feel like, sometimes I feel like if I just say it to someone, it helps instead of just saying it to myself and beating myself up all day.
Right. Exactly.
Or then or let it tail off, and then you guys kind of grab dinner or something, or come back and like, all right, so I know you said a couple things. Here is my, if you want my opinion, I've been in a similar situation. I'm not going to say, I've been through the same exact thing. That's one thing that it used to irritate me. Now I get it. I see why people do some stuff like that, but you're never in the same position as someone else, ever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always different. It's not your life. They're not, living your, story. You're living your own, they're living their own. Although it may appear to be the same thing, it never is. No. So the best piece of advice I received on, giving that to somebody, that it is solicited first.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you just give a story about yourself of a time that maybe you went through something similar, and you explain that it's not the same, but when I went through something like this, this is what I did. This may or may not help you, but I'm just trying to help, be here for you. If it's not, then, maybe we can, choose a different route.
Some people know things are hard, but experiencing it is different. Like they know what they're going to get themselves into. They know they're not going to have time for anything. But going through, it's like, in your head, you just have to let it out to someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that's like my problem is like that. I always feel like my problems are my problems, and I shouldn't be like venting that on somebody. So that's what I feel like I bottle some of that stuff up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what a lot of times people say, get a hobby, or you have find a creative outlet or something like that. So for me, I know a lot of stuff where instead of keeping it bottled up, I have drawings of endless amounts that I started to keep now. Because it's just like, well, I might as well just keep this now, because now, that's me quote unquote venting, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, exercising. You know, some people do different things. Some people, you know, do lawn work or yard work. I mean, they do stuff. You know, work on their cars. You know, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think I'm not saying that's solving everyone's
No.
problems, but I feel like that's a form of, you know, you venting or trying to escape or actually think things through.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
while I'm doing that stuff, I'm thinking
Yeah.
of life and trying to paint it out. Especially when I'm jogging, I'm going through a lot of stuff in my mind, which is good.
I do mine. It sounds funny doing the dishes. Like literally, I'll come home from work, and I'll you know, hang out with the kids or whatever, and then in my head, I just like replaying whatever. And if I'm like frustrated about something or whatever, I literally would just do the dishes and think things over, and just by the time I'm done, it's just like, all right, it's all good now.
Yeah.
So it could be as simple as that to kind of relieve it.
Yeah, I think everyone has their own, you know, methods of stress relief, whatever that is. I think it's interesting seeing what other people do, but yeah, I mean, you have to vent. I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
we're all connected at some point, and we have to reach out to one another to help each other to, you know, cope with certain things, because you can't deal with everything just by yourself.
No, I know.
And some things have to be talked about and to kind of get over those mental blocks that we were talking about before. Maybe this is releasing a mental block for someone listening right now, or one of us sitting here right now, making like, all right, yeah, maybe I got to stop being a punk about something and just kind of, you know, fight through it and literally play injured. So, all right, with that being said, we're going to wrap this episode up with 2 quotes. The first is by Troy Polamalu. Mike, wasn't this your guy? It was your guy for a while.
Yeah, it was him.
All right, and it goes like this. Injury in general teaches you to appreciate every moment. I've had my share of injuries throughout my career. It's humbling. It gives you perspective. No matter how many times I've been hurt, I've learned from that injury and come back even more humble, which is interesting. I thought that was going to end on more stronger. Great quote. And the next one is by Peyton Manning. Nobody really wants to hear about anybody else's injuries or how your back feels. Whose back doesn't hurt? Right? So that's a totally different way of looking at things. And there you have it, folks. Episode number 20. Don't forget, if you're new, download and subscribe. We have a brand new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. In this episode, we talked about playing injured. We discussed our stories of sucking it up and being relentless, Dad's reaction to a child's injury, and advice to friends on the difficulties of life. We wrapped up the episode with quotes from Troy Polamalu and Peyton Manning. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.